All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting edition of the Know Your Enemy podcast. I'm your host, Purple Haze, aka Mark Hayes, based in the Dirty South in the ATL Shouty. And joining me, my co host, my partner in crime, BG, aka the Uptown Point Guard. Brock Ganeles is here with us. BG, how goes it, my friend?
Good afternoon, Mark. You know,
Afternoon.
it's tough out, it's tough out there. I'm doing
Yes,
okay. I'm doing
it's
okay.
hard
Where
out
do you want
there.
to start? Where do you want to dive in today? You know what? I want
Let's,
to start with my pet peeve of the day, Mark. And the thing that's got me right now is the topic of political courage.
what?
and the
That doesn't
absence of
exist.
political and the absence of political courage. Okay,
Yes.
so this even Rachel Maddow even put this around. So apparently, story comes out that Tom Tillis, senator from North Carolina, was going to vote against Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, but the FBI came to him with a quote credible threat, credible death threat against him relative to this vote. So he stepped in line and voted for Pete Hegseth. And
Wow.
I'm like, maybe the story, stories, but there's stories like this keep coming out that behind the scenes, a lot of Republicans are really upset with what Trump's doing, but they're afraid to speak out because they're afraid of literally of the violence. And
Right.
I have zero tolerance for this cowardice
Yeah.
because if you can't take the heat, you can simply resign the position, just blame it on say a health reason, spend more or you want to spend more time with your family and step aside because in this moment in time, you have to be able to handle that type of threat. First of all, death threats are so easy to do. Keyboard warriors could just do it on the
Right.
internet
Right.
anonymously. Like, I mean, to me, everyone gets a death threat for everything. Right? Taylor Swift gets a death threat before every concert, thousand. Like, you just have to
Right.
kind of barrel through it in this day and age. So I found that just embarrassing. I'm tired of hearing about all these reps that totally disagree but are afraid of the violence that may come their way if they step out of line. Look, I'm no
Right.
war hero, right? But like if someone said the death threat at me, it's not going to shut me up, right? We're going to
Right.
keep talking. You're still going to do what is in your heart. Like, are you really going to allow your life to be influenced by like some random joker?
Right.
Yeah, my head would be on a swivel. I'd be more worried. But like, you have to live your life. So Tom Tillis can't do the job. He can't live his own principles because he's afraid of the violence. He just can't be in politics right now. He's not
Right.
representing anyone. He's been intimidated
Right.
into a position. On the
Right.
other hand, and then I'll turn it to you, AOC eats death threats for breakfast.
All day.
All day, every day, right? For like 5, 6 years now, and she
Right.
just barrels through it. But we're supposed to be
Right.
sympathetic because Tom Tillis, and it literally changed his vote because he got threatened.
Right.
Our Secretary of Defense, supposedly leading our armed forces. Well, it's Tillis, voting for the guy who's going to lead our armed forces, right? He has the
Right.
power to decide who should be the leader of men, and he's not even strong enough to vote yes or no with his own conviction on such an important role.
Yeah. Had I known that being a television host was a prerequisite for that job, I'd have put my hat in the ring. Why not? I'm qualified as as far as that Senate subcommittee goes. But think about it. Let's pile on a little bit. Mitch McConnell comes out with the announcement that he's not seeking re-election. You talk about a profile in political cowardice. What is he? He's had his chance on more than what, six, seven, eight, ten, a dozen occasions to get rid of Trump, right? They could have gotten rid of Trump with the impeachment vote. We would have been done with him. We would have been done with him. And now here he comes and wants, somebody to celebrate his career. There is nothing to celebrate about
Um,
Moscow Mitch. Nothing whatsoever. You know, I mean, the man, Trump criticized your wife, criticized, belittled his wife, disparaged Mitch's wife. And he still fell in line because he was afraid of the possible aftershocks. As far as I see, nothing's happened to anybody who was so-called threatened by the Trumpster. Who is Trump going to get to do something to you? Right? But the night they were all on that Senate floor scared to death with Ashley Babbitt climbing through the window when she got blown away, everybody wanted to do something then. Lindsey Graham stood up, hey, count me out. He was on the golf course 2 weeks ago with Trump. Mitch McConnell, there are still, these legal remedies. He hasn't gotten away with anything. Yes, he did, buddy. And you helped him get away with it. We had RFK confirmed. Guy is a registered quack, right? Doctors on the panel voted for him. Medical doctors who have taken the oath to do no harm have said, yeah, this guy's not so bad. Maybe he's got something there with that worm eating thing, that worm eating half of the brain thing. Let's give him a whirl. Are you kidding me?
I just want to not see absolutely not another story about anyone who's supposedly behind closed doors or off the record is saying how they feel threatened and they're unsafe, and that's why their heart is in one place, but they're voting because of their family's at risk. Resign if that's the way you feel. Resign. Someone will take that seat and take that risk, and political courage has been, basically a requirement for the job since, day one in this country, and I just have no tolerance for it. But surprisingly, if we're going to go at the lower end of political courage, we did see a couple congressmen actually hosting town halls and being willing to speak to their constituents, particularly down in your neck of the woods.
Yes, indeed. Rich McCormick jumped up in front of an audience over in Roswell in the 7th Political District, and he paid for it. They had some tough questions for him. They're concerned about the debt ceiling over there. They're concerned about the mass layoffs and firing by the Doji squad, the juvenile delinquents, running around ruining people's lives for no good reason. Wasn't our economy just the envy of the world back in December? Forgive me if I've misquoted it, but it was. So why are you coming in here making all these cuts to these essential services? Because you know who works in those jobs? Brock? Those folks that live in Roswell, a very affluent community right outside the city of Atlanta. Alpharetta, same thing. Wealthy, white Americans who have worked hard, been on the job for 15, 20 years. Young professionals with children just now starting their careers, getting their lives underway. They might work at Emory at a program that's the funding's been cut, or Georgia Tech, or the HBCUs. You see the HBCU cuts coming. We know all about the cuts that are coming our way, so it's no surprise to us. But you look at those folks last night at McCormick's town hall, and you say, "Hold it, wait a minute. This wasn't supposed to happen to us. We weren't supposed to be impacted. It was the other folks that were supposed to feel it, not us." And by other, I mean black and brown folks.
Yeah, it was the DEI hires that were supposed to get fired. It was the cutting of the fat, not the core 50-year-old white guy who's been in that job for 25 years with fantastic benefits. Because that did look like an older, very white crowd just from when the room got panned, going after their white congressman. And being that he's a Republican and you telling me that's a Republican district, that was kind of a MAGA on MAGA sort of violence, right? Going after each other.
Yep. But remember, here's my thing. I'm feeling like these folks are absolutely having buyer's remorse, but they're also upset with themselves, right? And like you were saying, we want to let them off the hook by saying, oh, they voted for kitchen table issues. Let's take a look at, where his policies are. They weren't voting for any policies. They were voting for the same hateful rhetoric he had going in Trump 1.0. They were voting to get the other folks out of their way, right? Because those are the folks that are taking the jobs. Those are the folks in the DEI programs, advancing, having some sort of decent life. As if, of the things that upsets black folks the most, Brock, is that we should only have a decent, the notion that we should only have a decent life if we're exceptional at sports, music, or some form of entertainment, right? Like, why can't we be physicists? Why can't we be nuclear scientists, right? Why can't we be average, everyday Americans and have a piece of the
Yeah, why
American
can't you
dream?
be a manager? Be a manager in one of these great federal government jobs, right? And like run the
Exactly.
department.
Exactly. And so, when you look at it, don't have buyer's remorse now. Don't be kicking yourself now and then you're coming to the town hall screaming at Mr. McCormick, right? They were in a screaming match last night. Mr. McCormick had to say, hey, settle down. Screaming at me is not going to help us. Well, you know what? You're not helping us because you're not exhibiting any political courage, right where we started this hour, Brock.
But But it also shows how angry white people get and will continue to get when you take things away from them. White
Yep.
America, we're not used to having things taken away from us. We're used to getting things and getting more, and we're aspirational, and the American dream is achievable for us. So we're used to having things, and you
Yep.
start cutting these really, good paying, great benefits government jobs, and it hits home, and now people, you're getting white America's quality of life going down, so the energy is going to be huge. Now that energy cannot lead a resistance movement to Donald Trump. That's like a mini MAGA civil war, which we love to see cracks in their veneer, but
Right.
they're not going to be out front of the protests that are going to be necessary to actually get change at the top
Right.
in America, right? Like
Right.
it's still going to have to come from the left. So I think everyone on the left has fun watching this, and maybe that energy will, kind of inspire. Like, hey, you can yell at people, you can get away with this. We have shit to say. They're mad. If they're mad, we're 10 times as mad because we actually care about democracy and freedoms and rights and equality and all that stuff.
You ain't kidding. And see, on the black hand side, you got to remember, black folks are used to the struggle, bruh. We've had things taken away from us since the beginning of time, right? So we're used to being on the struggle bus, right? Not that we enjoy it, not that we prefer it. I'm sitting up here in my comfortable, suburban household, but you know what? My grandkids go to school in the urban districts, right? I don't want to see cuts to the public schools and federal funding cut to public schools in those areas that did not go to Trump during the election, right? Those are the areas where my grandbabies live. I don't want to see those areas cut, but we know the cuts are coming because we're always on the chopping block first. HBCU cuts are in line now. Where's Black MAGA? They said, oh, Trump has done more for the HBCUs than any other president in your life. Oh, really? Take a look at all these cuts. The USDA discontinued that program that is impacting 20 HBCUs, which means that many fewer kids are going to be able to go to college on that scholarship that was being funded by the USDA because the Doji, you know, miscreants, decided it wasn't worth funding. Right? Like who are these guys to come in here, and big balls and musky to come in here and start cutting stuff like they're part of us. Musk is an apartheid rooted white man from South Africa. Why in the world do we want him in charge of anything in our great democracy? There was nothing sexy about apartheid. Nothing. And the remnants of apartheid still, I was just in Joburg 2 summers ago, two falls ago. And the remnants of apartheid still live. In some parts of Johannesburg, you can't even tell apartheid is over with anymore. Right? So we're doing like existential damage here. We're watching it. And until we start shutting stuff down, now I will say, let's move over to action. We have seen some action. That little known Vikings player who was a former kicker getting locked up on the front lines of the resistance. And I love it. Chris Cluey, I'm looking for your poster, bro. I'm I'm trying to hang his poster in my office because I can appreciate the sacrifice and you putting it out there.
Yeah, he got out there. He got a lot of buzz, and we keep looking for leaders on the white side of the ledger. And
Yep.
intentionally or unintentionally, like his hat got thrown in the ring, right? Because he showed political courage, right?
Right.
And the harm wasn't so bad. Got thrown in jail, whatever. And that was kind of one of the criticisms of all the the Congress people that got in front of Department of Education and Consumer Financial Protection Board and stirred up a lot of trouble and then didn't get in the doors because the Doji guys were playing doorman at the front, bouncers at
Right.
the front. Someone did point out and say, well, if that was John Lewis, they would have gotten themselves arrested, right? Like they went up to the precipice, but they didn't go that next level. Chris Cluey got
Right.
himself arrested, right? And I saw another clip from a town hall where this was, I think, in a Democratic district where a guy got up and he said to his congressman, get arrested, get out front.
Right.
And the guy got up and said, I'll get arrested with you, but I need you to lead. And
Right.
really was pushing him to go that next level of really being not just loud, but disruptive, which I think
Disrupt.
you just talked about, like shutting things down. Like, kind of got to move to the next level of being disruptive. You can't just, allow things to happen around us. All building up to whenever, a bigger and bigger protest and shutdown that's going to have to
Right.
happen down the road.
Absolutely. And did you see another leader emerging from the pack on the white side of the ledger? J.B. Pritzker, out in Illinois, the governor there, with a rousing State of the State speech that talked about how quickly Adolf Hitler was able to dismantle Germany's democracy. And that speech had me wanting to run through a wall. That was a
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal speech by a phenomenal man. The more and more I read about J.B. Pritzker, the more and more I really like him and
I
what
know.
he
I'm
stands
with you.
for.
And I've
Yeah,
never been a Pritzker. I never have not been a Pritzker guy historically. I've always just been like okay with him. But I'm
right.
with you. Interesting that like you kind of point that out. He is definitely steady. He's loud. He's not. He's willing to be brash and out there, and he's aggressive. So I think he's setting the right tone. Um,
And
Unlike Kathy
and
Hochul, who won't fire Eric Adams, but we won't even get into Hochul. Stay on Pritzker. I think you're right. I think if we're talking about who moved on the white side of the ledger, white American side of the ledger, Pritzker and Chris Cluey threw himself in there, and Pritzker's making a bigger name for himself.
and they both were harping on the same theme, right? This is a Nazi movement. That's what upset people in that California town hall that Chris Cluey was in. He called it a Nazi movement. J.B. Pritzker talked about the Nazis who wanted to march in Skokie, Illinois, a community full of Holocaust survivors back in 1978. They wanted to march there, and gosh darn it, good meaning, well intentioned white folks shut it down. And then they ended up having the rally in Chicago. About 20 fascist neo Nazis showed up and about 2,000 counter protesters. That tells you how long that thing lasted, right? So, and over the course of my lifetime, I literally can't think of a time that I've been to a neo-Nazi protest where people didn't show up to crush their movement. And now, all of a sudden, we have the MAGA side of the ledger. It's not so bad. Nazis weren't so bad, right? But following a game show host, and I think all bets
Yep.
were off when the game show host won the presidency. All bets were off. And,
Well,
if
it gets.
he's qualified,
Sorry.
yeah, if he's qualified, then anyone can do it, right? It doesn't take much to read a cue card. I know I used to do it for a living. I used to read a prompter.
So it gets back to the political courage element, and it just in my mind, like it's just not that hard to say what needs to be said.
No.
And we kind of put the term political courage on top of things where people take an action that could cost them their job, like Adam Kinzinger did, like Liz Cheney did. And it's laudable. Yeah, and losing your job sucks if it's a job you liked, but your principles have to be more important than your job, right? Your being, right? Like, who hasn't at some point in their career had to have either an argument or a confrontation or a heart-to-heart at their workplace that
Right.
put their employment at risk? Like, I've had it happen multiple times. Sometimes I walked, sometimes I was able to make change, but I was in scenarios where like things needed to change or I had to find somewhere else to go. And you have to be willing to either get fired or to quit if
Yeah.
where you're working doesn't fit your principles. Well, that's just so why is it such a big deal for a congressman or senator to potentially risk their job? So what? They go get another cushy job, right? Half of them are lawyers. They go back to some private law firm. So like it's not that hard to say what's in your heart and do the right thing and risk getting voted out or, getting out of favor, losing your donor base or whatever, all those concerns. Like, why are their jobs so important and why should we give a shit if they keep their jobs? Because my point of view is like, there's always someone else to fill in, backfill, right? There's always someone to take these jobs. So I just want to hear people to say what needs to be said, do what needs to be done. You're in a job that requires principle and courage. Display it or don't occupy the seat anymore.
Right. Right. Because you're supposed to be a leader, a mover, and a shaker. We got people like Lauren Boebert, right? Talking about the party of family values. Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? These two people talking about the party of family. Really? Marjorie Taylor Greene? Lauren Boebert? Like, Google family values and see if their name comes up. Right? But you can Google domestic violence and cheating on your spouse and see whose name comes up in Congress, And it's just ridiculous at this point who some of these leaders are and who we're falling behind. Like, how did we become, such a gullible electorate? I'm not even saying dumb or stupid. We're gullible. Like, it's like playing the shell game in New York City. You can't win. You can't win.
Yeah, but my belief is in the end, people believe and hear what they want to hear, and they cherry pick and go with what they want to hear. So they're gonna find something in these people that they like, even if they know it's coming from a crazy point of view. But I'll give Boebert and MTG, some credit. Matt Gaetz, some of the worst people ever to be in Congress. But you know what? They're always speaking their mind. They're just saying like batshit crazy shit all the time. So why don't we have like fair-minded people coming with like fair-minded but aggressive arguments right back out at them? We
only get two people that do that. There's only two people that are doing that right now, and that's AOC and Jasmine Crockett. And they need some backup because there's so many more on the right doing it.
It's not that hard a message to deliver. The Democrat, I guess it's more like particularly white. I shouldn't just say all the Democrats, but the white Democrats are afraid of the message that, I think inspires the largest audience, which is the multiracial, multicultural, pro-immigrant message that we are a land of immigrants. We're all immigrants. Let's embrace it. Let's remind ourselves that the diversity of America is the strength of America. It makes us different than the rest of the world, that a lot of different people can come together. We respect each other's religious beliefs and cultures, and we play into the ideal of America is what binds us together. But everybody came in ships one way or another except for the Native Americans.
Yep.
We all came in different ships in different years, different ways. So like why anyone thinks that they have like a stronger hold on, how America should be is just absurd, but it's not said enough. It's not embraced enough. Like you got to come back with brown people being thrown in trains and shipped to Gitmo, you got to come back with no. We're pro-immigrant. We need these people. We want people from all over the world. We want the best and the brightest as scientists. We want the most talented people in the world. We want people willing to do the jobs that no one else wants to do. We need all of you to make us the strongest, best country in the world. Why aren't we saying that all the time?
Right. Brock, I the MAGA voter typically does not leave their zip code, right? So when you have a limited view of America and the rest of the world, that view tends to be very, very slim, a very small window into what's now a global conglomerate, and why you need global partners, why America first and alone is not such a great idea. And I was thinking when J.B. Pritzker was giving his State of the State, and he brought up Adolf Hitler and the Nazi movement. I actually visited Dachau, the concentration camp, on a hockey tour, and I don't know. I'm trying to think. The Civil Rights Museum here in Atlanta, we have several of them, have moved me like that, and the one in Detroit have touched me the way the one at Dachau does, because they've got actual jail cells, actual uniforms, slippers, and when you see the enormity of it, the size of how many people must have died, like you can't put your head around it until you can't see to the end of the concentration camp. Like you'd have to drive to the end to see the end. It's that big. And, they were liberated by Allied forces at Dachau, and folks were never so happy to see American troops. And now our troops are sitting here wondering if they can get the health care they need, wondering, why things are being snatched out from under them at the VA, snatched out from under them trying to do their jobs. The CIA, right? There was a report that said their deaths and captures for their agents, meaning undercover and secret agents, was up 76%. How is that patriotic?
Now they're reporting into Tulsi Gabbard. Can you believe that? She's getting her information every day. She knows where they all are, right? Yep. Can you imagine being out in the field, and
you gotta run.
Your country has your back? No,
they don't.
Way.
Not doing it.
No way.
Not doing it. And so before we wrap up this hour, Brock, I wanted to talk with you about the old saying that goes a little like this. It says, everything Trump touches dies. Now, why am I starting with that for our closeout segment here? It's because Trump made a call to the USA hockey team last night prior to...
I wasn't going to let this go without talking hockey. I didn't know he made a call.
Made a call. Okay. Bill Guerin, the president of USA Hockey, took the call and took the phone on speaker into the locker room. And Donald Trump gave another one of those bullshit speeches with no substance about how skilled and how much of a hockey fan he was. I guarantee you, he can't name one player on that USA Hockey team. And they went out there and they lost in OT, even after the hooligans booed the national anthem. Now, we got some good players on our squad, but Canada got the truth. They got McDavid, they got Crosby, they got McKinnon.
My question to you, I wasn't going to end without asking you this. Who are you rooting for?
Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
As soon as I heard the team wanted Trump to come to the game to support him, they were asking for his presence there. I was like, okay, you know what? Canada needs and deserves this. Their
Yes,
people are
indeed.
fighting harder for our democracy than we are.
Yep.
And,
Absolutely.
like they say, ball don't lie, puck don't lie, right?
You don't
Yeah,
lie.
I mean, it's sad.
You don't lie.
It's sad. I'm sitting here watching the international competition, and I'm not rooting for the USA.
Why
That's
not? Hey,
that's
Brock, and
where we're
here's the
at.
difference. Here's the difference. Many of those Canadian players, and I won't say all of them, but many of them come from rural areas where they didn't have much growing up. They probably wore hand-me-down skates. They got sticks from their brother or their neighbor. The dad went out back and built a rink on the pond in the back or in their backyard. Canada is home to some of the most famous and well-built backyard rinks with lights, goals, horns, the whole nine, right? But those my point is those guys didn't come with silver spoons in their mouth. Almost every USA hockey player does because it is cost prohibitive here. And don't get me started on USA hockey, right? Because I paid the money to USA hockey for my kid to play hockey since he was 4 years old. And I'm telling you what, I can't stand USA hockey. And it goes back to the first Trump term when I had to throw my Miracle on Ice movie in the garbage because the Miracle on Ice 1980 Olympic team who beat the Russians and won gold up in Lake Placid went on stage with Trump at a Trump rally. And that to me is unforgivable. And I know the kind of barriers that exist when it comes to advancing as a hockey player of color. It's very, very difficult. Every hockey player of color, if he's being honest with you, will tell you that same thing. So there you have it. 3-2 your final in overtime. Oh Canada, and I know the whole anthem. I've learned it quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely fantastic national anthem. It's the best anthem to sing. The "Oh
Oh, it's
Canada"
the
is
best
just
one
a
going. Oh
great
yeah.
song.
All right.
And the words are easy, like the U.S. anthem, right? It's getting
Right.
botched left and right. No one can really remember the words.
Right.
Uh,
So
all
that's where
right.
we are, bro.
Look, we still got work to do. I think we'd say there
Plenty.
was some signs of progress, but the negatives still are just like an avalanche and are just piling onto people. And we're gonna have to motivate quicker because the
Yes.
damage is being done faster. I
Yes.
think that's
Yes.
sort of our takeaway for today.
Yeah, speaking of that, coming up on the 28th, we got the economic boycott, a total shutdown. Don't buy anything. So we're going to be talking about that leading up to the 28th. Also, we need to get a march going at the Kennedy Center because they're talking about the J6 choir performing at the Kennedy Center. So those stories and more coming up as we continue to give you the primer in black and white right here on Know Your Enemy. That's it for me, Brock. What do you have in your
All right,
parting
take care.
words?
Keep up the fight. Hey, there's no time for anyone to feel drained or tired or worn down. This is a marathon and this is an everyday battle, and we need to fight on every single front. So
Right.
that's where we're at. It's not where we wanted to be, but that's where we're at.
No doubt. All right, folks, stay with us. Much more to come. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and please share these videos with your friends if you think they'd enjoy them. Have a great night, folks. We'll see you next time on Know Your Enemy, a primer in black and white.
All right. Take care, Mark.
I love it.